Everybody, hopefully this works. So welcome to Derivatives from Tables. This is Nicholas JMV, or if you're my students, Mr. Bennett. So when you take a derivative from a table, we're actually going to apply all the same rules that we normally do, but we just get our values from a table. So you got to make note of your specific x values, your f of x, your g f prime. So you got to make sure you pick the right one. You don't want to get confused up here. Okay, so I've got 3 examples to show you. Number 3 is probably most important because that's probably what you're going to see on the exam. So let's look. We're given h of x is equal to f of x plus g of x. Find h prime of 3. So our x value is going to be 3 in this case. So if we find the derivative, so if we look for h prime of x, okay, what we need to do here, these are just 2 standalone functions. And so what I'm going to do is just take the derivative of f of x, which is just f prime of x. Okay? And the derivative of g of x is just g prime of x. So straightforward. Okay? And we need to find h prime of 3. So h prime of 3 now, and I'm just going to go ahead and use a different color here to plug in because I find that much easier to do. So g prime, everything is going to be 3 now inside for x because we know what x is. So you have 3 here, 3, and 3. So now I'm ready to take the derivative of this function. So now I can look at my table. So I'm looking at f prime when x is 3. So f prime when your x value is 3. Okay, so f prime when x is 3 is 1. Okay, plus g prime of 3. So I look for g prime of 3. So g prime and 3 is -1. So 1 plus -1 is 0. Okay, so that's our final answer for that first one here. So let me move that down. Sorry, we get 0. Okay. Our second example is just a difference. So it's really just the same thing. Let me extend our table down here, extend our page. Okay, and what we can do is we can grab the table and bring it down here so we don't lose it. All right, so now let's look at finding h prime of 4, but now we're taking a difference. So we're going to have h prime of x. The derivative now is just the same thing, f prime of x minus g of x. Or g prime of x, excuse me. So once I take the derivative, I'm looking now with an x value of 4, so I'm looking at h prime of 4. So again, I'm going to go ahead and just use a different color for my x value here so you can see the illustration. I like this better for me so I can visualize it. Okay, so 4, 4, and 4. Okay, so now once we take the derivative, then we can go back to the table. Okay, so f prime of 4. f prime, 4 is 1 minus g prime of 4. So I go to g prime of 4, which is here, which is -1, and 1 minus -1 is 2. Okay? So those were just an addition and a subtraction rule for derivatives. In the next example, we're going to apply one of our major rules, the quotient rule. Okay, so we have h of x is equal to f of x divided by g of x. Find h prime of 1. So I've got a new table. Let's go ahead and take the derivative. So the derivative, okay, h prime of x, remember, is bottom times the derivative of top minus top times derivative of bottom. Okay, so we have bottom, which is g of x, times the derivative of the top, which is f prime of x, minus top, which is f of x, times the derivative of bottom, which is g prime of x. So there's my numerator. So I go ahead and now I've got to do the denominator, which is just bottom squared. So I have g of x, and we're going to square that whole thing. Great, now I got the derivative, and I want h prime of 1, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to extend the page down. Oops, let's grab the table. Let's go back up here. There we go. There we go. So now we got the table down here. Let's go ahead. G, so we want g of 1, okay? And again, I'll just go ahead and oops, Sorry, everybody. Move that a little bit more out of the way. So g prime of 1. So I'm going again, just like I did before. I like to go ahead and leave my blanks. You don't have to do this. Okay, so now wherever my parentheses are, I'm putting a 1. Okay, so I've got that taken care of. Now I have to go to my table. Okay, so now I need the table of results. Sorry, I'll go back over here. We can put this over here. For now, we'll put it right there so we can see. Now, g of 1. So we go to g of 1 is 2. Okay, so we have 2 times f prime of 1. So f prime of 1 is negative 2 minus f of 1. F of 1 is 3 times g prime of 1. So g prime of 1 is 1. Okay, all divided by g of 1 squared. So g of 1 is 2, so all over 2 squared. Okay, so I get negative 4 minus 3 over 4, which is negative 7 over 4. All right, so here's our last example here. Okay, now this one is going to be the most useful for you in this video because it's the one that you're most likely going to see on the exam. So we have a composition f of g of x. Find h prime of 3. So h prime of x is going to be equal to the derivative of the outside times the inside times the derivative of the inside, which is g prime of x. So h prime of 3 now is equal to f prime of g of 3 times g prime of 3. So I'm going to plug in 3 now for x, okay, and 3 here and 3 here. So there's a little bit of work we have to do. And here we go. So we have f prime of, well, we got to find g of 3. G of 3. G of 3 is right here, which is 2, times g prime of 3. G prime of 3 is 1. Okay, and now we look at f prime of 2. F prime of 2 is 1/2. So we have 1/2 times 1, which is 1/2. All right, so that is derivatives from tables. I hope you guys don't have, if you understood that, that's great. If you have any questions or comments, just go ahead and type them below. We'll see you next time.